Well, we are running. It's been a very short period between our last podcast and the one tonight, but the subject matter seems to be. Hang on. The subject matter is once again it's based on natural resources, and what's happened is that there was logging trucks were taking logs off an area on Cape Breton in Nova Scotia, and they're taking the logs to the Port Hawkesbury paper mill. And there was some Mi'kmaq there that said you can't do it. They stopped a couple of trucks and they confiscated the logs. So here we have again some people trying to stand up for their rights. And what do you make of that situation?
Well, I see it a little different than you in that standing up for their rights. No, they're fulfilling their responsibility. They're fulfilling their responsibility. With a lot of people, they don't understand it, but it's uh, it's a matter of genetics. They use terms like, "Oh, there was some resistance," or "there was opposition." I'm sorry, it's happening everywhere. The genetics of Indian people are starting to awaken more so than ever before. Now that's a spiritual proposition. Once they awaken, what are you going to do with that source of energy? Because the purest source of energy is spirit energy. White man will never understand that. Too despiritualized. So, in all of this, those people are standing up because they're being responsible, the way I perceive it. They're fulfilling the law that they should be living by. And that is, they're the true peacekeepers in relation to treaty. The Indian is the peacekeeper in his own territories, not the reserve, his territory. Now, that can be defined quite simply. Linguistic concept. Wherever Mi'kmaq is spoken, that's their jurisdiction, their territory. But there's one thing that's got to be dealt with, and that was what I said earlier. They've got to remove that prisoner of war status. It can be done, just like in the courts with Treaty 3. But I took it to the rule of law that binds treaties. Nobody else will do that for them, especially lawyers. I honor them for what they've done. Totally. I totally honor them. I would like to be able to advise them somehow. But I survive on what people give me, not on what the lawyers charge. But yes, they can be stopped. They can stop the court from making any decision in relation to anything that the RCMP should try and attempt to charge them with. At this point, just dispersing, right?
Yeah.
Well, all right. Now, next will come a court injunction, which most of these people who think they own it, like the premier of that province, he's got big investments. And you mentioned earlier, a close friend of Trudeau's owns that company. That's logging.
He's on the board of directors. Yeah.
Well, that's the other part of it. So Trudeau, knowing what an Indian is and what an Indian isn't legally, and he knew he's not a Queen's Counsel for nothing. So his friends, obviously, the elite, think they can continue business as usual on Indian lands. And they assume that jurisdiction, thinking the Indian is dead. according to the advice from Trudeau and
Yeah.
those elite that they don't really rule. They're just puppetry, but they do know. They've been given to know. They're going to run a country.
Well, one of the owners is Ronald L. Stern, and he's the chair of the board of directors for Port Hawkesbury Paper, and his senior advisor is Jack Austin, and Austin is the former member of the cabinet with Trudeau.
Oh, there it is.
So yeah, so these guys get around. And he's also with Prime Minister Paul Martin, who was a cabinet minister. So we got a big company here, or well, they have one big mill in Cape Breton, which is basically on the tip of Nova Scotia, the northern tip of Nova Scotia, and we've got some people that are trying to ostensibly protect the moose, but also protect the ground and the medicines and the environment, because they're chopping down a lot of trees. So that's what they're doing. They're trying to stop them. And I think they had a camp up there, but the RCMP dismantled that camp a couple of days ago, but they're back and they're confiscating wood trucks. They're stopping the wood trucks and they're physically taking the wood, I guess, parking the trailers. So things are shaping up to be another confrontation. I don't know if it's fair to compare it to the confrontation over fracking at LC Buktuk in 2013?
Yeah,
And I think you went down there as well. Do you see a parallel here?
of course, because the premier at that time is the same one who's invested in that province, and it's not just fracking, the oil industry, or anything like that. He owns many of the uh, service station outlets across that whole province, and his family, and other vested interests.
Oh, the Irving
So,
family, yeah.
yeah. So, where you have people in positions like that, they're going to do everything possible to try and defeat what it is that came about in that case that hit the courts, where the judge finally admitted, after listening and reading the rule of law that I presented, and Max Daigle standing solid as American Indian. That's his true identity in relation to knowing, who his tribal people are, the Mi'kmaq. The point of it is, the rule of law has been established in our courts. So I think they're going to be a little leery when it comes to this matter. They're going to try to handle it with kid gloves because it could be very explosive. I would really like to get to a lot of these places to talk to the people and encourage them not to do fundraising to hire lawyers or liars, because that's all they can do.
Well, let's draw a comparison just basically on what I've heard, and I was nowhere near LC Buktok in 2013. I was here in Winnipeg, but there was a big crowd of people that were trying to fight back against the fracking. And, there was warrior societies, war chiefs. There was probably a bunch of what do you call them? Agent provocateurs. There was a lot of pushing and shoving on the highway. Things got physical. There was a lot of people got arrested. There was a bunch of young men that were arrested. Maxine was one of them. The others, well, they hired a lawyer. They hired some lawyers.
Yeah, I met with one of their lawyers. She was a lot of me. I didn't want her in the meeting that Maxie convened, but they allowed her in to know her friend. Or, no, she was a threat, and she proved so. But anyway, excuse me.
Well,
Yeah,
she was a domestic lawyer. She's sworn to uphold the
yeah,
crown.
yeah, yeah. See, here's the other thing in that matter. Uh, Maxie was centered out to begin with as the cause of this whole movement against fracking. Now, he educated the people. He works in thermonuclear today, but he used to work in the oil industry, so he knew it from A to Z. So he started to educate the people on what is going to happen in their territory. So eventually he started to tell them it's time now to stop them. We've got to stop them because the result is going to be first of all, your water table is going to be poisoned. It was right next to the reserve and the town. So and there's actually a lot of white people that were encouraging them and were supporting them openly. I was listening to one of the white rallies as I passed through the town. And so they were pretty effective that way. No. So Max had these charges against him. He was the quiet guy in the meeting. So put it this way, cut to the chase. The result of the meeting was that I got some information, put it that way. This lawyer woman was the only one allowed to visit two of the young men who were arrested. I'm sorry, three of the young men who were arrested. Okay, off that roadblock. And not even the parents. Okay, no relatives were allowed to visit them. Only that lawyer. So I told her in that meeting the best thing that you could tell them is there's help here for them, but they cannot enter a plea, and I'll help them. Just tell them. It's not going to cost them anything. She didn't tell. One of them was released, probation. The other one was convicted. I don't know how much time he got. So there's an example, and I'm telling you why they shouldn't bother with lawyers. All they can do is cut deals. They can't take back jurisdiction or establish jurisdiction. I can, and I will.
Well, you were able to establish jurisdiction by speaking for Maxime
Of
Daigle.
course, of course, the judge finally admitted. In other words, they always use cover words to make them look like they still have jurisdiction over the Indian, but in reality they don't, and they know it. So to acquit a case is to say you're defeated, especially when there's no uh, accepting of any court-appointed lawyer, which I told them to deny. They always try to do that, appoint one of theirs. So there goes allegiance as soon as you allow them to represent you. So trying to get across to people. And I come along and they try to stop me. But they can't stop me when I'm called as a legal expert witness by the one who's representing himself. So it's not a matter of just knowing their system, it's knowing who you are and what you can do within a context of their courtroom and actually being able to address jurisdiction in their own courtroom. To my knowledge, nobody that I know of other than the late Meredith Quinn and myself. To my knowledge, that's it.
Mhm.
So for what's happening now, I don't want to see people as current news, especially with us. This is not something current. Like I said, there's a matter of the genetics. It's reawakening in the people, and it's wonderful. But along with that pure energy, how are they going to use it? So when I see them stand up over there, there's nothing more I can say other than if I could make it there if I'm needed, all they have to do is call me. That's all I have to do. And I won't charge them anything. I accept what they're given. If it's a bowl of soup and a place to lay my head, I'm satisfied. But winter's coming, I might need a thicker sleeper bag.
Yeah,
But
snow will be flying pretty soon. Well, like eventually the fracking stopped.
yes,
Why did it stop? Why didn't they just keep on going and just run roughshod over everybody's rights? For- Forgive me for
okay,
using the term.
okay. There, after that, there was a lot of resistance among the Mi'kmaq people in different areas and different issues. To my knowledge, it wasn't just. Also, I brought up the fact that uh, with their treaty was made prior to this concept of a country called Canada, before it was even conceived of, because their treaty goes back to the 1700s. So I told them this first of all supersedes, because if you interpret the treaty properly by the rule of law, this Canada wouldn't even challenge you. This province is just a byproduct of Canada, the corporation, corporate government. So where if it explained properly, the people will understand it in time. That's what I'm talking about, the genetic. I'm not in any way regretful that a lot of people didn't catch on right away. It's to be expected. I'm not ahead of anybody. I just know what I'm talking about. I know what works and what doesn't. So when the genetics kick in, these people start to realize there was something to what they did. Yes. No, it's not to thank Maxi in totality. No, all of them, because that's the use of spiritual power. Even though there's those who were sent in to disrupt and do things that make them look like criminals. No, that's to be expected. Provocateurs. It's been in the Indian movements for a longest time, but by now we pretty well determined who's who. So to to address this matter in totality, should they bring up or ever be charged? Should they bring up the treaty, but stand solid on treaty being based on peace and peace alone? And I mean it. And I'll back up what I'll say. And like I said, if they need me to come and explain it to them, I will do so. And if they use it properly, they will have the right, as we call them rights, they will have first right of occupancy, which the Indian has. But because that prisoner of war status, that's where they try to hold them. Address it properly by that treaty, just like with Treaty 3 in Kenora. That's what it took. The proper interpretation of it and the threat, how they perceive it, of that interpretation catching on.
Well,
And
I
people,
can tell you, and you probably know this too. With all those Indian Act chiefs and council involved, they're going to have lawyers in there trying to interpret that treaty for them.
this is exactly what I wanted to mention as well. It's a good thing you brought it up, because that's exactly what's going to happen. They're going to make heyday out of this politically. That's what they're going to do, as well as they're going to use it to threaten that government. More money. That's all it is. That's all they're going to use it for. Also, some of them have vested interests and are associated with some of the people you just mentioned. Don't ever kid yourself. There's elite among Indian people that a lot of people don't even know about.
Well, one of the things I read in one of the newspaper accounts was that the company, Hawkesbury Paper, has deals with band councils, um, for that allow them to go and log. but some of the band members, some of the people on the ground are saying the Chiefs have no right to make those deals for us.
They're exactly right. They're exactly right. The corporate charter or the chief is nothing more than chief executive officer of a corporation, just like the corporation he serves. So if you really want to look at it properly, I'll use some terms that people should understand. The colonizer no longer has to continue openly what he's been doing in the past. He now has a neo-colonialist. That's your own people, chief and councils, that have been given full powers to do what they want within your POW camp, your prisoner of war camp. Okay? They cannot extend that to territory. They can't. They can't even in the reserve, if you stand up properly and have that treaty properly, there's no elected chief that has any legal right whatsoever to even mention a treaty because they committed treason against you, the tribe, the people. Law is very simple, but they confuse it, especially for the Indian, so that you'll never ever see the validity and knowing your own law or bringing it to the level beyond international law. So the power that the law has of the people is immeasurable, and it works. So
Well,
maybe think of it as small scale that I've been through. I'm sorry, it affected a lot of the decisions made in areas where the corporation thinks these Indians don't know who they are. They've been instructed so. So to bring them back to fruition, knowing they know who they are, that's what needs to be done. Where it can be done quickly, simply because of that treaty. And if I'm not mistaken, those people are covered by a treaty that predates the government of Canada, and I believe the treaty was made with the French. No, why would that involve France? Well, the only way it involves France is just like Canada. France, what is it today? Second law of the land.
Quebec. Well, even the terminology with those treaties, there was a few of them, but they were called peace and friendship treaties.
That's exactly what it was meant to be, and it should have been kept that way. And today, if you understand it properly, the wording of it is exact. It's exacting. Now, the living philosophy of it has changed on the part of the Indian because of the oppression caused by the other party who's for peace, to live by peace. It's more than a violation. It's more than a violation.
You sound optimistic that the people that are involved in this fight, which is developing, have been reawakened. The Mi'kmaq are a matrilineal people, like just about everybody else in North
Yeah.
America. Um, yeah, you sound optimistic. They they seem to be reawakening. They won the fracking fight. Now they've got another one with another company. The same power structure, the same white power structure, corporate people influencing their elected governments uh, and affecting the courts and trying to drag these people into court under their law.
Mhm.
Take it from there. What's happening?
Well, first of all, it's being enforced. There's times that I've told people what you do is you put together for the course as well as my legal presentation, you put together what I considered an assessment of everything that transpired from the first time that you were arrested. Now, I also tell them when you go into that court, understand that you're going there under duress. And you're there under duress caused by, and you got to mention, chief and counsel. Okay? Chief and counsel. Now, I've done that before. The very idea of law and order, if anything, rests with the power of the Indian. So I tell them your only identity in that courtroom should be an Indian protected by your treaty. Very simple. Whether you're off the reserve or on the reserve, wherever that court is held. Like, for example, in Cardston, today they're talking about how that land was surrendered and became a town. It was the kindness of the people. Again, friendship, peace. They allowed them to stay one winter, took care of them, fed them. Sound familiar? That was the Mormons. Well, let's have a look at that structure. There's two members not too long back when I was down there who quit the church because they raised, I believe it was 10 million, and all that money went to the big church, Salt Lake City. Okay. I kind of laughed and I told the people that I was sitting with, said, let's have a look at that. I said, years ago, I had a look at the structure of the Mormon church. And let's have a look at who used to sit on the board of the Mormon church. William Casey, former head of the FBI.
Hmm.
Want to go on? Two former heads of the CIA, Mormon church. No, they're in an intelligence business. Well, let's boot it up. They are responsible for everything that has transpired in the past in relation to our people. They have that information. Okay. So those who are privileged to get like up here with the crown, they have their own hierarchy and how it's distributed in relation to information, especially on the American Indian. QC is an example. They flash it because they have the authority. That's what they're signifying.
Well, in this day and age, it's King's Counsel, so it's KC. But everybody who was a QC is now a KC, just
Yeah,
in case.
yeah. Everything changes, right? But the point of it is, where these treaties, some are keep screaming it, they're made with the crown. The point of it doesn't matter who they're made with. We have treaties that predate that. With Denmark to begin with, we have a treaty with Denmark. Dakotas, a lot of us know. Some of the people from Denmark, long before this Columbus Commission was sanctioned to come here and declare some false right, we were trading with the white tribes of Europe, and they were one of the tribes. They're mentioned a couple times in some of the ancient documents I have privilege to read. So that is still valid today. A lot of people don't understand that. See, the greatest thing about the law is this: law is law until it's removed. Well, you can't remove these old laws because they become civilized nations. So those who are not civilized or are los indios without God, that's your saving grace. Some use the term savage. Savage simply means you're free. Ain't nobody governing you. They're scared of you. that's, that's a cover word for fear.
Hmm.
Fear that Indian, he's a savage. Well, a lot of
What do
these
you?
things are,
Yeah. Well, this situation at what is it called, Hunter's Mountain,
yeah,
with the Port Hawkesbury paper. It's apparently it's developing very quickly, and it's not going to go away in a couple of days.
no.
I I,
And
I would go ahead. Sorry.
I would encourage everybody to do whatever they can in support of these people, in support of them, but encourage them to come to know the rule of law that can protect them, whether it's in the courts or up that mountain. So what they're doing is, in actuality, it's asserting jurisdiction. They're asserting it. In other words, they're living it. Remember, our law is a living philosophy. It's our responsibility to be responsible for everything within our territories. And when I look around some of the places I've been, people are concerned about what's left of the medicines, what's been happening to them. Sprays going on purposely. A lot of these fires, and they should be protecting that mountain. They should get all the support, like I said, because a lot of these fires are being set on purpose so that you can be rounded up, get out of those areas, burn you out, and pass a law that allows you to go back because they want the resource that they've been burning the forest for. Lithium, number one, the new gold, the future of all their so called gas burning vehicles that become obsolete purposely. The worst danger is lithium will explode. They have all these so called safeties in place. I'm sorry, they don't. And they won't report the number of explosions that transpired or how many people were killed because of those explosions. But there are learned people that do know. The point of it is here, a lot of the Indian people who stand up like it's going on now, I encourage you to do so. I know it's getting cold, so get warm. And the fires that you start, you always know how to take care of them. Do all you can because it's your responsibility to protect this earth, to protect what we've been given on this part of the world. It's our responsibility by our law. So live our law. You have the greatest respect from this old man. And if you ever need me, you get hold of me. I'll help you for as long as I can, like I said, till I drop. I'll live by what I know and I'll help you to understand how to use the law to protect everything where they can't touch you. So there's so much more that can be discussed. When I think about it and I think about hollow water of recent, all these matters can be resolved by the people. They can be resolved by the people, not any government program. Nothing is going to work. It's not. It must come from you, the people. That's who must do it. I'll help you in any way that I can by law. When you start to live it, it works. Remember now, the law of our tribes at one time was a living philosophy. We never had to talk about it the way we are now. Today we have to get back to what it is that we have to do to protect what's left of the sacredness of our territories, from the medicines to the trees to all of it. I encourage you to do so when I get back to the mountains where we first started. I would like to go and select the logs from my home and send them already. They built a fire guard, they're already there. So I won't abuse it. I'll use them for my home. So I'll live that long to make it back home. Point of it is, you should be doing the same. Prefabricated Indian Affairs approved housing. You're the ones that select the logs in your forest to build your homes. That's the way it should be all across this country before they burn it down, looking for resources that they think is going to sustain their livelihood. No, they're looking for a way to sustain their lifestyle. Their lifestyle. It's costing us to support their lifestyle. And I hear a lot of people say, well, it comes from our taxes. Where do you think your money comes from that you pay taxes to? They make it out of thin air. But the real backup is the resource you're taking off our people's lands all across this country. That's where your wealth comes from. So they give you amounts of money that they create. They can print millions and millions of dollars, no problem. Keep you in line, keep you hoping, while they're stealing the resource that backs up their printed monies. And it costs the earth and the people. So resistance has got to take place, further resistance. I can help you how it works. It's not just when you have a treaty. Those of you who have no treaty, I'm a descendant of those who wouldn't accept treaty. In my bloodline, my great Namasompan, for his time, it's said and it's written, white man records of all things. This man had the purest Indian bloodline that they ever had a look at. So I feel good about that. And that's some time ago. So his daughter, Nokompan, that's my late grandmother. She married my uncle, who was of mixed blood, what they call a half-breed. And all the way down the line, it was half-breed men marrying Indian women. That's my bloodline. Now, if you look at everything in relation to allegiance, your bloodline is secondary. Your blood quantum is secondary. I just put that out there because a lot of people think of me as a white guy. I don't care. Go ahead. I know where I grew up. Sure wasn't in Honkyville, I'll tell you that. I was surrounded at times in Honkyville, but I never grew up there. Now, to end it all, when I think about all the resistance that I was a part of in the past, armed resistance, all of it, I feel good that it's going on. Things change. Now, we are in a position to address these matters to anybody that comes into the territories. We have the way of doing it and the way of stopping it. First of all, it must be addressed, but must be addressed by law. That's what stops it. Just like in the courts. They'll continue until you show them that they do not have jurisdiction. And should they continue the assumption of jurisdiction, they're committing the crime of treason against the descendants of an Indian tribe. It's simple enough. I would like to have a school going before my time. Maybe
Well,
that'll happen.
maybe you'll have a chance to school people with what's happening down east. I think we're coming to our time limit. You said a lot of good things, and let's see what happens in the next few days, and we'll be back at this again very shortly.
All
Now that
right.
now that we've ironed out some of our technical bugs,
Yeah. To
now that
speak of
we've taken jurisdiction over Facebook.
we'll have to do that.
Okay,
No more bugs. No more bugs or else.
all right.
Or
Well, have a
else
good
there
day.
is. Uh-huh. All
Oh.
right. Bye.